Does the government work for us, or do we exist to serve the government? Can the government sell us a product and force us to buy it? Tonight, the teachers' unions and human freedom. For 5 days this week, this country has been entertained, then intrigued, and now angered at the public behavior of the teachers' unions in Madison, Wisconsin. Here's the background. In 1934, when FDR and his gang of socialists began the central planning of our economy from Washington, the Congress enacted a series of laws intended to force businesses to bargain in good faith with labor unions who would represent all the workers. The same statutes also set up the National Labor Relations Board, whose members would be pro-union activists appointed by the president to hear and rule on disputes between labor and management. This was a subtle way for bureaucrats in Washington to get their noses under the tent of private businesses. Think about it. Every time there was a dispute between management and labor, the federal government would resolve the dispute. Where is the authority for that in the Constitution? Nowhere. In order to get the votes to pass this brand of incipient socialism, FDR agreed to leave the states alone. So the laws that required businesses to negotiate with labor union leaders and the laws that sent labor management disputes between businesses and labor to the NLRB simply did not apply to the states. But many states recognized labor unions anyway as the legitimate and lawful representatives of their employees. And many states caved to these unions and gave them sweetheart deals. For example, in New Jersey, long before Governor Christie, governors and legislators of both parties enacted laws that gave teachers and cops, are you ready for this? Health care benefits with no meaningful deductions and with no employee contributions from the first day on the job until the day of death. Today, in states like New Jersey and Wisconsin, governors are finally realizing the state governments simply cannot afford to pay for that. So Governor Christie in New Jersey and Governor Walker in Wisconsin have asked for legislation that would require employee contributions to pensions and health care. This doesn't take away a nickel of benefits from teachers and cops. It merely makes them pay for a portion of it, just like the rest of us do in the private sector. In Wisconsin, the teachers are furious. Thousands called in sick when they really were angry, not ill. This massive sick-out is the legal equivalent of a strike, which is illegal by public employees. The kids suffer, the parents suffer, even the teachers suffer because they lose income. Some teachers even ask their students to accompany them to the demonstrations in Madison. So not going to work and taking kids out of school and into the political cauldron of a heated battle in which the governor of Wisconsin is compared to Hitler. That's not what teachers are hired to do. But there's a larger picture here that most in the media have overlooked. Why is the government even in the business of teaching in the first place? The government doesn't provide us with food or homes or clothing or shoes. Why should it provide our kids with an education? Everyone knows that the quality of public education in this country is terrible. And what's the reason? It's run by the government, and thus it has no meaningful competition. Of course, there are Catholic schools and other religious schools and private schools, but even if you send your kids there, you still pay the taxes to support the public schools. And the administrators of those schools and the leaders of the teachers' unions know this. No matter how poorly they do their job, the money will still come from the taxpayers, and the kids will still come into the classroom. We need true freedom of choice and real competition here. But these are two concepts that the government hates: freedom and competition. We should let all taxpayers who want to opt out of paying taxes for public schools do so, just as the government lacks the authority to force you to buy health care or to eat broccoli. It lacks the authority to force you to pay for its failing schools. What would happen if none of us, except those who freely chose to do so, were compelled to pay taxes for government-owned schools? You'd see for-profit schools pop up everywhere, just like cell phones and street corner emergency rooms. Competition will improve the product and lower the cost, and you will have a vast menu of schools from which to choose. And the government can sell those lovely old school buildings to developers who will happily turn them into nice condos. And the better public school teachers will have higher paying jobs, but jobs where they must perform and produce. And we will all see freedom and competition, and will educate our kids far better than the government can.